Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Arlene Diamco, the multidimensional MD. My mission is to help bring the intuitive spirit back to medicine in practical and tangible ways so that we can access deeper healing, experience more peace, love, and joy in our everyday lives. I felt called to come back here for this episode because there was something I really wanted to talk about. And it's been a number of weeks since I've been on the podcast, but it's a little bit later in the day for me here. And this topic is so important, especially for everything going on right now. And that is this battle of consciousness. Because with so much going on in the world, it can feel difficult to think clearly. There are real distractions. It starts to become a battle of consciousness, which can take a toll on our health as well as the state of humanity. So, why does it feel so hard to maintain a high frequency of consciousness? And what can we do about it? So when I've been teaching osteopathy and etheric body healing and meditation and other ways to expand our perceptual abilities, here are some common things that I hear students struggle with. That it takes so much concentration, that letting go is hard, or rather, it's easy because you're doing less, but it's hard to let things be easy. There's this kind of holding on that we have, this gripping. And how can you stay focused with so much going on? It's difficult to expand those perceptual abilities when we have so many distractions. So what makes it hard? It's these distractions, these sensory distractions. It's fear. It's nervous system irritations. And if we give up our consciousness to these distractions, then we actually perpetuate the distractions. Our thoughts become entangled with them. And it's so important for us to maintain our own consciousness, to be conscious of our own consciousness. This is a soul awareness, because if we start to be looping with the chaos that is going on, then we become entangled with all of these distractions that are destructive, and and in a way we're giving up our own consciousness. And that's part of what I say. It's like it's a battle of consciousness. And so the more you can be distracted, the more you can be afraid, the more you are giving up your own free will, your own consciousness, your own um your 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 way of connecting to your true self, which is expansive and free. So, for a simple example, I just got back from an amazing osteopathic conference, the AAO, American Academy of Osteopathy convocation that's held annually in Colorado Springs. That's where it was this year at the Broadmoor. And when I got back to Atlanta, the airport, as you know, was so packed. Worse than I've ever seen it before. Worse than when my family missed a flight after the day after Christmas, and we were in the airport for 11 hours. It was way worse than all of that because people were missing flights. They were waiting up to 6 hours in line. And my first thought was like, I can't, I imagine like putting myself in that situation. It's like, I can't do it. I don't know what I would do. But then I reminded myself, this is where the self-coaching comes in. I just kept thinking, and this is where the wisdom teachings come in. They might mention it in Course of Miracles or in other wisdom teachings, that this is our reminder of the soul's journey, that everything here in the 3D, our human experience, is a simulation, and to not feed into the chaotic energy of it or to soak it up either, because the airport was so crowded, and I was thankful that I was leaving instead of arriving, that it was actually difficult to even get out of the airport. And there were so many people in the airport that it was so hot in there too. And was texting a friend, and she said, yeah, that's true, but it's hard to let it flow by. And I said, "Yeah, that's the Jedi Knight trick." And she asked, "How do you get on that level?" And I said, "Meditate and develop a vivid imagination." So I was thinking, our human existence is like a spaceship simulator to practice and ready ourselves for the real life, our soul life, our eternal life. And that's why in various holistic circles, we place so much emphasis on the soul's journey. So everything here, and we talk about this in quantum physics, is everything here is somehow a simulation. It's hard to get into this. Our mind starts to um the gears start to get like kind of stuck and wonky when we start to think about it like this, because how can it be a simulation when it seems so real? And, but notice, like, things, like, especially AI, when you look at, AI pictures or AI writing, it's like there's something a little bit glitchy, there's something not quite right. And when we think about our soul essence, the purity of that, the love, the kindness, the compassion, and, when we look at the world as we know it, there is a lot that's really glitchy about it. It's not quite right. And so I have to remind myself that this is not all there is. There is so much more that unseen than seen. There is much more than the 3D reality. And I was thinking about this, even a situation like this, like being stuck in the airport, which is not the end of the world, but it can be really difficult. I thought about how I would handle such a situation. And again, I said, my first thought was like, no, no, I can't do it. And then I softened to myself and I reminded myself of something I had read Dr. A.T. Still say. He's the founder of osteopathy. He said, "I know my connection to my maker, or the stillness, or the creative forces, whatever you would like it to call the universal oneness." He had been through so much tragedy, fighting as an abolitionist during the war, the loss of his first wife and 3 children, and then later a loss of another child. And from these losses, he looked inward, and softened, and looked at his own nature, and he discovered or uncovered osteopathy. And so meditation and developing a rich imagination are important here. And in that rich imagination, I mean, developing a rich inner world, your soul, your spiritual life. So, I was looking up the definition of imagination. I got this from a Google search. Imagination is the cognitive ability to form mental images, sensations, or concepts of things not currently perceived by the senses, experienced in reality, or existing at all. It is a creative, often subconscious mental process used to visualize scenarios, invent ideas, and problem solve. Imagination, we know, helps us with any creative process, with design, with coming up with new things, with problem solving, with perspective, with empathy. It helps you put yourself in someone else's shoes. It is with our imagination, both conscious and subconscious, that we create the world. And as Einstein used to say, imagination is more important than knowledge. And I had to sit with this for a bit because it's like, what is this developing the rich inner world, developing our imagination? And how is that different than numbing out to the world? Like, I'm just going to ignore everything on the outside and pull in and only be in my shell. So, how is it not a numbing to the world? And I had to sit with myself and feel the difference in that. Okay, what does it feel to be frozen? What does it feel to numb out? What does it feel like to be numbing with sugar, with binge watching TV, with drugs or alcohol, with anything, with being too busy? What does that feel like? And I just felt that in myself. And what does it, or imagine situations, and then what does it feel like to have a rich inner world, but not be numbed out to the world, and be able to feel what's going on around you. So um, it's that different. The feeling is a different of expansion. So it's a feeling of of like feeling if you're feeling like you're developing that rich inner world, you're feeling more expanded, you're feeling more free, you have a gentleness with yourself. And if you feel like you're frozen or numbing out to things, then there's a pulling in, there's a tension, there's a curling inward, or sometimes just frozen out like that. But there's some kind of tension in the body. And that is the difference. It is whether you're feeling free, feeling more grounded and present, that you can be aware of your inner state, but you can also be aware of the states of others around you. Or if you are so unaware of the states of others around you, and you're actually not completely aware of your inner state because there's so much tension that there's this lack of clarity, you're actually eclipsed to your true self. And so, consider that, anytime you're using your imagination to create consciously in the world, it's like, when am I ignoring things and numbing out to them? And when am I developing, being conscious and creating consciously with the universe, with the stillness? And that's something, I have to pause and feel into it sometimes to recognize when it is numbing out or when it is an expansion. I was reading uh, Tucker, Ernest E. Tucker, and he wrote this amazing book, Reminiscences of Dr. A.T. Still. Again, A.T. Still is the founder of osteopathy. And Ernest E. Tucker was his student and knew him well, was friends with him too for about 20 years. And in Tucker's writings, he was referring to the Great Spirit, the oneness of consciousness, the stillness, the creative forces, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever you want to refer to that universal oneness. So this is in Tucker's writing. He said, at the center of consciousness, each of us, by virtue of this surplus of free energy of the greater consciousness is what he's referring to, is aware of questions, of the possibility of further extension of that consciousness, of that truth. So we are part of this. We are part of this oneness, and we are each, this is me paraphrasing, we are each these unique emanations of that. So we are like all part of one each of another. And like Anita Morjani says, this is one of my favorite analogies, is that we're like all of this part of this one giant hand, and we're like these each little finger unique emanations of this giant hand, and we think we're separate, but if we were to really see the bigger picture, we would see we're all part of this hand, and we need to be able to work together. So Tucker says that there are questions and the possibility of further extension of that consciousness, of that truth. We're seeking, right? Truth seekers. At that point, there is complete honesty or there is nothing. There is complete sincerity or there is nothing. At that point, consciousness recognizes its own inherent conditions, one of which is undisguised honesty with itself. At that point, also, consciousness recognizes intelligence and sees that honesty and intelligence are one and the same. Can intelligence be dishonest with itself and still be intelligence? At that point, also, now we have not any name for this. Call it friendliness or willingness or mutuality or the spirit of coordination. But this is also part of the inherent condition of being. Creation at its heart is a friendly process. Friendliness and honesty and intelligence are all different aspects of one and the same thing. I love that. I read it slowly because there's a lot to digest there. And for me, what he's saying is that the truth of us, our true nature is friendliness, kindness, honesty, um, collaboration, working together, coordination, attunement with one another. And that is our true nature. And when we are dishonest with ourselves, it is no longer intelligence. So for us to live with both the intelligence, that inner wisdom, and and the consciousness of ourselves, then we are by default kindness, love, coordination, working together. And this is how we create the world, because anything else is going to be destructive. And what does this consciousness have to do with health? Everything, because we have many dimensions of consciousness, from the physical. Even our physical bodies have consciousness, and Edgar Casey talks about that. For example, we think about our guts as being having these second brains to them, and how much we feel into our guts. And this is our solar plexus area, where we can also sense the world in a different way, with us in a subconscious way. So our physical bodies have consciousness, and of course our mental consciousness, and then our spiritual soul consciousness. So when our dimensions of consciousness are attuned to the creative forces, to love and unity, then we feel healthy and expansive. We are clear expressions of our nature. And when we are not attuned, our nature is eclipsed and we feel dis-ease. And we can use our imagination, that amazing ability of our minds, to attune to the oneness. Any potential change first begins as an idea, as this energy, the potential energy, before it manifests in 3D physical reality. And so, this is why it's important to be aware of this battle of consciousness, to not give away yours so readily, and to talk to yourself, to coach yourself, to have this soul awareness, to have a bigger perspective of the soul's journey, to realize that we are in this spacecraft simulator, and it is preparing us for something even greater, and that is part of the soul's journey. So understand your connection, our connection with our creator, with the creative forces, with the stillness, with the universe, whatever you would like to call it, and that we are part of each other. We are part of this great oneness. And so when we seem to be at odds with each other, that's not real. That's the glitch in the simulation. And our job is to realize it as such, and to soften to ourselves. And again, you can just walk yourself through it. I do it on a regular basis. So even try it with the small situations first, those little things that irk you. Soften to yourself, breathe, expand your awareness, create like a gentle awareness, look around with a soft gaze, soft eyes, not the hard fixed staring of a tunnel vision, but a soft gaze will help you to be aware of more things. And then consider your ideal. What would you ideally like to feel like? What would you ideally like the world to look like? And develop that. That's your mini meditation of considering what is your ideal way of being, of feeling, of moving through the world. And then don't wait. Go ahead and take steps to act in this ideal that you create in your imagination, that potential energy where everything is born first before it is manifested into physical 3D reality. And when we attune all of our various dimensions of consciousness, our minds, our spirit, our soul consciousness, our bodies, our energy fields, then that's when we start to get into that flow state. So we can start to be and flow through life without having to feel like we're thinking, working so hard at it. But in the beginning, it takes some conscious energy, momentum to shift gears. So if you are in the habit of spinning wheels, of being frightened by all of the chaos in the world, and believe me, there are real things that are big distractions out there that's really difficult. But to soften, feel yourself, remember, this is a simulation. This is part of our practice for our soul's journey. Remember, imagine what your ideal is, and then take steps. First, think of what it is, feel what it is, and then take action in your ideal. And it doesn't mean numbing out to the world, because it will be you being aware of your state of being, grounded and present, with the ability to be grounded and present and aware of other people's states of being. If you feel like you're starting to barrel through the world and ignoring your state of being and other state of being, that is not the same thing as like taking steps with your ideal imagination. So we can use our imaginative creative forces for good or for not so good, but the true creative forces that work with intelligence is always loving and creative and supportive. So anything that is destructive is not really, that's the glitch in the system. Those are not the creative forces. That's not true intelligence. So remember who you are. Do not mirror anything with fear. And this is our call to to reclaim our consciousness so that we can unite and work together as we are meant to be and create a better world here on Earth. So thank you for joining me. I hope this helps you in some way. Please share with anyone you feel that could benefit from it. If you have questions, let me know. Drop them in the comments. I would love to know what you think, how you feel, any thoughts, where you're from, and never know who's watching unless you tell me. So lots of love to all of you. I believe in you, and I hope that you believe in you too. You can connect with me on Instagram at All Worlds Health, Facebook, All Worlds Health and Pediatrics, and my website. I send out an e-love letter about once a week or every other week, and that's allworldshealth.com. I'll see you next time.